Hello, everybody. Today I'm going to deal with the topic poverty in Britain. Absolute definition of poverty. So, absolute definition of poverty is defined as a lack of sufficient resources with a person cannot maintain the family or the person's basic needs of life, including the food, water, and clothing, healthcare, and education, etc. So, what are the characteristics of a absolute definition of poverty means? Fixed threshold. The poverty line is fixed and it does not changes with the economic conditions of a country. So we know that the economic changes is happening every in a financial year. So it does not means that the poverty level is line is fixed. So he cannot able to attain his basic life needs. Next one, it focuses on the basic needs that the person needs to survive. And global measure. It is a global measure and that the poverty line is the same across different countries. Next, we'll do what is about the relative definition of poverty. It refers to a condition where a person does not have the necessary resources to meet the average standard of life living. Characteristics of relative poverty. So, variable threshold. The poverty line changes with the economic conditions of a country and also standard of living. It focuses mainly upon on the standard of living to a particular society and the poverty the specific measures it is a country specific measures and the poverty line varies across its different countries. It won't be same or among all the countries. It is really different from one country to the other because the economic conditions of a country is different to other countries as well. So this is just an image of a poverty. A person is asking for the help, and we can do what is the characteristics of absolute and relative poverty. So we can see absolute poverty, it is a lack of minimum resources for physical health and basic needs as well. And here, what is relative poverty? Lack of resources to meet the average standard of a living. So here the threshold is fixed, and in the relative poverty, the threshold is really a variable one. And focus, it mainly for basic needs, but in the relative poverty, it's mainly based on the standard of living. It really varies about the standard of living. And next one measure, it is a global measure in the absolute poverty. In the relative poverty, it is a country specific measurement taken. Advantages, absolute poverty is uniform and it has got a very clear picture of that. And the relative poverty is really considers the variations, the more monetary factors and also the country economic conditions. So all those things varies. The next one is a theory about social exclusion. So, on the whole, the poverty is really about a social exclusion. Is that a true fact about that? In the most of the extreme form, it is the inability to access what you need for a decent life, actually. So, it relatively speaking, in more developed countries, it's been excluded from what the absolute, the normal daily life. So, access to the decent housing. One of the most important the poor condition, the poor habiting conditions, the poor clothing, and also the poor living standards. Respiratory diseases is one of the most common in the poor in among the poor people. And relative poverty depends upon the level of development of the country. It's about giving everyone the chance to enjoy the same living standard so that everyone has an equal opportunity to live their own life. So, in that sense, fighting poverty is about unlocking a huge and untapped economic potential within the each country. So, now we are going to look how poverty has changed in Britain. So, before Britain has also had got a many poverty, poverty line peoples was the but how the Britain is going, how the Britain have changed in the this poverty level. So the 18th and 19th century, so rapid urbanization and technological advancements during the Industrial Revolution, leading to the significant transformations in the economics and also the societies, and also the welfare programs and the social reform movements in the early 20th century aimed to improve the living conditions and elevate poverty among the marginalized peoples. So the Great Depression emphasized the need for all more robust social safety nets, which resulted in the establishment of programs such as Social Security in the United States. So that was one of the beginning to change this poverty line. And poverty reduction was a global focus during the mid 20th century. The United Nations established the Millennium Development Goals in 2000, which include the targets for improving the living conditions and reducing the poverty as well. In the 21st century, poverty reduction efforts focused on sustainable development and also tackling the root causes for that. So most poverty rates are in there, the different to the other people's, it won't be the same to all the countries and all. So, according to the UK, the most mass reduction has been in the pensioner poverty. So, it is almost half as common as this is back in 2000, while rates for working age adults were now slightly little bit higher. And poverty rates fell in the years after 2010 as the UK recovered from the financial crisis, but now are showing clear signs of raising again. 2000 after 2019, there was a pandemic, COVID was called. So it really makes all the financial crisis among all the world, not on in the Britain, but the whole world was in the crisis of this in the crisis of the poverty as well, because all the financial crisis was really higher on that time. And in 2016-17, relatively a low income rates was there. And also comparing to the 2018, I've already told that it's a pandemic disease, COVID was there, so already the financial crisis was on the higher rate. And the 4 million British workers are now living in a poverty. According to the report by the Joseph Rowntree Foundation, GRF, it has risen that half of a million compared with the 5 years ago. It's really now it's getting turned all the poverty lines, and the UK is just making the turning point for a poverty in the UK than a returning point. Then, what are the methods of measuring poverty? So, cost of basic needs, food, energy intake, subjective evaluations, absolute poverty, as we all discussed before, relative poverty, and also the hybrid measures. I'll go into detail about that one. So, next one, measuring poverty. Income measures. It is the most common method of measuring the poverty line. So, it based upon the income of a person. So, it involves comparing an individual's or a household's income to a set of poverty line. And consumption measures. This method measures the poverty based upon the consumption rate rather than the income level. For example, in a developing countries, the common consumption measure is whether a household can afford to consume a certain number of calories per day. So it's mainly based upon the consumption a person or a family is taking in a day. Multidimensional poverty index, that we call as MPI. So it considers multiple factors in its measurement of poverty, including health, education, and living standards as well. And for example, a household is considered to be poverty. It is deployed at least one third of the weighted indicators use the MPI. The next one is subjective measure. It method involves asking individuals or household are they satisfied with their daily, the daily food, and also about the level of consuming the calories per day. So that is also called as the subjective measures. So in the next we'll talk about the in details about the subjective measures. So this can provide valuable insights into how the people perceive their own economic situations. Okay, so that's one of the most important thing. So next one is the references. I've taken notes from the Learn Direct, and also STUDAX, that is a study materials measuring poverty, that is GSDRC, and also Poverty Britain Government.uk, Institute of Economic Affairs, so that the statistics was taken from that one, and Redefining Poverty, that was an image taken that giving compass. And thank you for paying attention. Thank you, everybody.